Today's news across all the front pages, the verdict of the trial of police officer Martyn Blake, who was found not guilty of murdering Chris Kaba, who he shot in the head in September 2022. Now, there's obviously a lot of anger and upset on both sides concerning this verdict. Now, the Police Federation of England and Wales said officers were asking what protection they have when doing such a dangerous and complex job. There have been so many kind of high-profile cases, police cases. Everybody's got an opinion, Kelly, and obviously, I think social media now, everybody talks about, you know, both sides of every story. I think with all of these, if we just move away from this particular case, you know, people always talk like, have we lost our faith in the police?
Yeah, well, firstly, I want to say that my thoughts and prayers are with Chris Kaba's family because they're not allowed to grieve at the moment because everything is in turmoil and everything, you know, obviously with the verdict yesterday, that will then bring another wave of grief on top of what they're already experiencing. So,
I mean, I think the cases, there's more details coming up.
Absolutely.
You have to be very careful what you say about it.
I was about to say that I won't be discussing any more about the case because I know there are lots of details still to come. But that's all I wanted to say, is that my thoughts are with the family. In terms of trust for the police, I think mine's just been damaged over, you know, through experience, really, because since I've been a very young person, I mean, since I got my, you know, first car, you know, passed my driving test, and, you know, when I was 17, I've probably been stopped throughout my life as a driver, maybe about 6 times, stopped, searched, harassed, flagged down by police officers who, unfortunately, didn't treat me very nicely when they did. Questioned, you know, asked, is this my car? Am I driving my own car? Does this car belong to you? Are you carrying anything that you shouldn't be? And obviously, at all times, it has been my vehicle, and I've been completely racially profiled, and I find that behaviour unacceptable. And I really hope that, I mean, I know that there have been new laws that are brought into place in terms of the powers that police now have for stop and search, but I still think those types of incidents continue. And I've had members of my family who have had, you know, have been abused at the hands of the police. My uncle in particular was left in a difficult, very terrible state when we went to collect him after being wrongfully arrested. He was in an absolutely awful state. And so my experience of the police has not been a pleasant one. They have not all been unpleasant. I'm going to balance that with the one incident that did happen when I was stopped during COVID because I had a bike on top, you know, those days when you weren't allowed to travel over a certain amount of a certain distance, and we had a lovely banter, and I was allowed to go along my way because I had a reason for travelling.
Does that follow through with your family, to your children? You know, do you tell them, you know, if ever you're out somewhere, which we would have been told, if you're out somewhere and you're concerned or something, find a police officer, find someone in authority? Has that tainted your
Unfortunately, yes,
about
100%. You know, what happened to George Floyd, I know it was another country, but the instance, I mean, I could be here and naming a lot more people that have lost their lives or have been hurt in police custody or at the hands of the police. Now, I must just counteract that before I get anyone saying to me, not all police are the same. My cousin is a serving police officer, so I get that not all police officers are the same. But what we definitely, you know, we've already examined the police force and found that it's an institutionally racist.
But we do hear, Katie, about morale within the police force, and the Metropolitan Chief, Sir Mark Rowley, has said today, the more you crush officers' spirits, the less they can fight crime, and that we hear all the time from police officers leaving the force. I believe you have a friend who is not happy with how they're treated, how people, the public, view the police now.
Yeah, I mean, I personally know police officers that feel scared and demoralised and they're worried about doing their job. And I don't want to take away from your experience because it's completely valid. And we sit alongside each other, both having totally different lived experiences. So I need to be mindful of that. You know, it's awful to hear what you're saying about your uncle and your family members. But I suppose, not surprisingly, I've had a really positive experience with the police, and I want them to be able to keep on policing our society and do their job. But like you know, I want to acknowledge the family. Somebody lost their son. I mean, I don't know how that feels as a mother. It's incredibly painful, and it's difficult because maybe something separate from this is there a generation below me that have lost respect and fear for authority in general? I'm not just talking about police.
I think so. I mean, you know, we watch Colin and I talk about this because I love all those, you know, police camera action.
Yeah, I do.
Shows, and I am literally open-mouthed at the disrespect
Oh,
for
I
not
watch
just
them
police, but
all.
authority
Yeah,
generally.
I watch them all the
schools.
time, and I'm thinking, how have you got the patience to not do something about that? I've seen on those programmes where they're getting spat at and shouted at and just, I'm going to do this to your wife, and they just stand there and they read them all of those things really calmly, and I'm fascinated by them. And I think, again, like Katie said, it's a different lived experience, and, you know, I don't... It's shocking what you have gone through and what your family have gone through. I don't condone that at all in any form. However, I think whenever something like this comes out, and it's always about, oh, have we lost faith in the police? I think we need to remember the really vast amount of great stuff the police do, and they do keep order as much as they can, but it's getting harder and harder for them.
You don't always hear about that, though, do you? You don't always hear about
That's what I'm
it.
saying, we don't hear the good side of it.
No, but that's why it's so great on our panel that you, Kelly, we've heard Brenda talk about this, we've had Judy Love talk about this. You know, I've never had to live that experience, so thank you for sharing that. And as Katie said, we never want to take that away from you. But obviously we have to look at the other side of these stories. And, you know, we talk about it a lot, obviously. Let us know what you think, because we do love to hear from you. As we will say, you are our 5th panellist